welcome back to the Kingdom of Bohemia at the turn of the tide.
Sorry. No, it's nice dramatic intro.
Our whole podcast is built around extremely over-dramatic moments, Alžběta, so I have no qualms about using it in this way, in this place. My name is Vašek, this is, as I said, Alžběta, and welcome to another bonus episode of Bloody Heart of Europe, where we are going to talk about, well, many things actually, because the episode we are basing our bonus around, episode 4, has also talked about quite a lot of stuff, hasn't it?
Yeah, it is one of the longest ones. I promise you, next one is not going to be that long.
Yeah.
It was a lot to cover. I think we, as much as we are getting closer to the Hussites, we tend to spend a little bit more about on these things to explain a little bit more. And I think it's because it's just getting more and more complicated. So. Yeah.
The episodes in which we deal with the shifting political situations and alliances, sometimes it's tough, especially when there sometimes just isn't enough time to explore everything in such a detail that it would deserve. But that's why we have bonus episodes, and that's why you're watching or listening to this show.
Yeah, you wouldn't expect that, there are still things that we didn't cover in the main episode, but here we are.
Oh yeah, there are many things. But let's base our start around, what we based the start of the main episode around, and that's the extremely dramatic moment which kickstarts this whole basically era of violence and conflict, and that is the first defenestration of Prague. And we already mentioned, obviously, in the main episode that there were several, and they always led to dire consequences. But yeah, let's just keep our focus on our, or Želivský's defenestration.
It's called First Defenestration of Prague.
For a reason, yeah. So let me ask you as a first question, Alžběta, where did the Hussites and Želivský's mob get this idea of throwing people out of the window? It seems oddly specific. Why couldn't they just kill them inside?
Yeah. By the way, this is one of the things. If I talk with people who are into history but they don't know much about Czech history, they somehow always know defenestration.
Yeah.
I guess it's because it's just a fun word. But
yeah, there's many coups and overthrows of government, but not many people do it with this style, because this is very stylish.
And it's getting back in, it's getting popular again in certain parts of today's world. But
yeah, but these were the people who actually were trying to overthrow the ruling class, not a dictator, eliminating his dissident opponents. So I think the situation is a bit different. But yeah, go on.
It's not the first time, definitely, that it happened that someone got thrown out of a window.
Yeah.
There were also these situations, in Europe that happened. But I think, for our story, one of the most important ones is that happened in, how to say the name of this town. So for our Polish listeners, please don't listen, because I'm saying Wrocław, because that's how a lot of people in English-speaking countries know this town.
Oh.
In Polish, it's more like a Wrocław.
Mm-hmm.
In Czech, Vratislav.
Yes.
But anyway, in this town, this city, it is interesting because it was a part of Bohemian Kingdom. And in 1 year before our defenestration, they had some councilormen in town hall and they didn't like them. So they stormed it and they just tossed them out of the window. It wasn't such it wasn't so planned as the Czech one. And I think they definitely didn't massacre them. Like, I think they died with the fall. I'm not quite sure. But anyway, basically, they got rid of the councilman. They appointed a different councilman. And then they kind of like waited what's going to happen. And they waited how Wenceslas going to react. And Wenceslas, guess what? He got really angry and then just said, all right. And left the new councilman be. And one of the ideas, especially, by Petr Černý, our historian that we use a lot because he absolutely loves this period. And he's like, his whole life is dedicated to it. So he sees that it was exactly this first thing that happened in Vratislav. That... it kind of told the Hussites later on that, like, oh, I guess this is how Wenceslas is going to react, right? If this is going to happen, like, maybe let's try it in Prague and let's see if he's going to react the same way. And in a way, they were right. But, the inspirations, it wasn't the only inspiration. In a way, the inspiration also, we talked about Racek Kobyla, R.I.P., from Kingdom Come Deliverance. So sorry for spoilers.
Yeah, doesn't end too well for him.
And this massacre, again, it's like thrown out of a window. It's like there's a symbolism in that sense of having someone who, if you imagine that societal ladder, and there is like a symbolism into like having someone who's on top and you cast them down.
Yeah, I mean, it seems obvious. Do you think something the Hussites or the revolutionaries of any type who were in the habit of doing this were actually thinking about? Like, did they see the symbolism?
Oh, definitely. Because we are in a period of history when symbolism is a massive part of life and it's a huge thing. So they definitely saw that. And also, another inspiration was definitely the biblical inspiration.
What? There's a biblical defenestration, Elžbieta?
There's a biblical defenestration. Because there's a story of Jezebel, who, it's in the Old Testament, and it's a story, she was a worshipper of Baal. And
that's so extremely heavy metal.
And she brought that to Israel and basically started to persecuting, people who weren't worshippers of Baal, until new king comes and basically tells her eunuchs because she's like mocking this new king and she's like looking at him from a tower, from a window. She's looking down, saying some, dirty talk at him, like, oh, you fucking idiot. And no, that sounds different, right? I mean, like a shit talk. I just didn't want it to say shit.
Okay, so she was saying nasty things to him from her tower. Okay. She wasn't trying to seduce him.
No.
Okay.
No. Yeah, she was just shit talking. Yeah.
You idiot. Very hot, seductive talk.
Well, no matter what, he didn't like it. So he basically commanded her eunuchs to throw her out of the window. Mm-hmm. She fell down, then she got trampled by horses and died. So it was like this whole story that very much fits the narrative for Hussites, because you have someone who is oppressing the religion. And then he gets cast out of a window.
Cast them down. Cast them down from their lofty perch. From the lofty perch of the city hall, which doesn't even kill them with the fall. That's awful. Okay, so I can now see where the inspiration came from, both from the real incidents and from their favorite book at the time. But we were quite unsure, or the main episode narrative wasn't quite certain about what exactly happened. We weren't sure, what prompted the assault on the city hall.
Oh, yeah.
And we aren't sure who was or wasn't there either, right? Because there's a possibility that our other main characters may have been present.
I think maybe also it's definitely worth to mention we had it a little bit exactly in that opening were like, oh, we don't know what happened. Was it a piece of rock or something? And the thing is that, exactly, there are some debates, and the contemporaries, like our favorite Lawrence of Březova and other chroniclers, they tried to a little bit like curb that, it was still absolutely violent act. And in a way, it was a murder, and there was no way around it. There was no, no proper trial or anything. It was just a bunch of people who just come there and killed someone. And
it wasn't even a fight, right? Because the people inside the building couldn't really defend themselves.
Yeah. So, in that way that they tried to, there were some theories that it could have happened exactly, that they might have, someone threw a rock at the monstrance or something, but it sounds very unlikely, and it's probably just a way how to justify the violence later on.
Hussite apologetics.
Yeah, exactly. But there are strong theories that even though it's in some chroniclers he's mentioned, but we still don't know for sure that Jan Žižka was part of it.
Yeah, he's going to be our absolutely main character for a long time forward. Yeah, because you probably heard the name already, or you might have, let's say, a famous general. And yes, he might have been there. He might have been there.
Exactly, some of the chroniclers basically just put him exactly that he was like the leading force, but there are some indications that exactly he was like a military leader who had quite a lot of experience, and the fact that there was no looting afterwards, which we know that wasn't, and there weren't any riots or anything. Like, in a weird way, it was very targeted, which for a mob is quite unusual.
It sounds almost like a military strike, right?
Yeah. So exactly, there are some theories that that's his kind of like signature.
Yeah, because if the Hussites had one exceptional military leader, it was Jan Žižka. So it would make sense in a way that he would be able to organize the strike force, the SEAL team medieval, to actually assassinate the people that needed to be gone for the political purpose of the Hussites. But we simply don't know. What we do know is the other side of the barricade, right, or the other side of the flimsy wooden door, because we know who was inside the building and who was actually massacred by the mob.
Yeah. I think like we don't know exactly the exact numbers. They're like, if it was a 10, 13, doesn't matter. But like, the names that we have, the councillors that died, I think it's important just to have a reminder that they weren't any nobles. It wasn't like, some rich guys who would be, they were just normal dudes. There was a carpenter, there was a tanner. It was just these townsfolk who happened to be a, part of this councillors, and they just lucked out.
Yeah, their main sin in the eyes of the Hussites, or rather, the reason they got into the situation was that they were quite Catholic, as we said, and they,
but not all of them.
Yeah, not all of them, and they were loyal to King Wenceslas.
Yeah.
Which might have been a mistake.
Yeah.
But then again, the majority of the Czech population or the Bohemian population at the time was loyal to Wenceslas. So
yeah, it's like, I think they were just really unlucky. And maybe like, speaking of unlucky, one of the most unlucky ones for me is Jan Humpolec, who was one of the ones that we know that died, and he actually helped to renovate the building of the town's hall. So
that's really ironic.
Yeah.
He poured his, life's work in a way into the building, and then that's the place where he dies. We can remind ourselves even of the fact that not even all of the people who were killed were the councillors, but also there were just innocent bystanders, basically. So yes, it was targeted. Yes, it was weirdly precise, but at the same time, they just took no prisoners and killed whoever. So
they in a way didn't care who's there. And exactly, some of the councillors actually managed to run away, or not run away, but they probably got tipped off, or for some reasons they just weren't present. So that's how they got away with this slaughter. 2 of them, they survived, and third, it's like a tragic story. So he runs away from Prague to a different town. It's called Český Brod, and
That's where my father was born.
oh, really?
Yeah, that's completely random. It's not a big town at all, but yeah.
Well, it was very unlucky for this poor guy, because basically 2 years later, Želivský marches in, captures the town, and get this guy captured and let him be burned in a barrel, which is absolutely disgusting way how to kill someone. Somehow during the Hussite Wars, super popular way how to execute. It's just not even the getting someone burned at the stake. It's just in a barrel. So like you really suffer. So I think
How does that work? Or
they put you in a barrel, just like shut you there, and then put the barrel on the on the fire. And just,
so you don't even because during the burnings at the stake you usually choked to death, right?
Yeah.
And this kind of protects you from the smoke,
Yeah.
in a way.
Yeah.
Well, that's terrible.
It's
Želivský's a
disgusting.
bloody psychopath.
Yeah. A bloody priest. Yep.
I mean, what did the scribe even do to him?
Yeah, I think that is definitely one of the personalities for me where like I think that Želivský definitely hold grudges.
Yeah, well,
And
yeah.
he definitely remembered who wronged him. And
It's like Final Destination, you know? you are marked by death and you will get it.
yeah. And spoiler alerts for future episodes. You will definitely hear about Želivský grudges more and more. So
Yes, that's something that comes really strongly through from the story. That he was in a way really, really petty in his hatreds and in his sympathies towards people. So yeah, but before we slander Želivský, our obviously favorite character. We say that about almost every character here, but yeah, Želivský is amazing, even though he's a complete bastard. Let's turn our attention to another of the great protagonists of the main episode, because we have had the defenestration, yes, but that was more of a localized strike on a political level. But then when we were talking about the really big political developments, the international stuff, basically, there was another viewpoint character we had. And if we like our or if you like your Wenceslas, you will definitely like your Čeněk, because there's another absolutely fascinating character that just, I can see him being like my friend who I don't like particularly too much, because he's kind of sketchy, but he's so, once again, relatable and modern in a way, in the way he acts sometimes.
He's a character. He's like absolute, I think he would be a great character for a TV show. I remember I went to some Hussite forum, web forum, and people there were discussing do you think that Čeněk of Wartenberg is pretty much like a Czech Peter Baelish from Game of Thrones? And
way less successful in a way.
I think it's not giving enough credit to Čeněk and somehow not giving enough credit to Peter Baelish.
Yeah.
It's somehow weirdly I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
But he's definitely a slimy guy, and you will see more.
Yeah.
This is just the beginning.
The ultimate turncoat in a way, but we've already seen it in this main episode, in that he quite readily abandoned his beliefs and his cause, which he helped kickstart Yes, but it
didn't work out. So
yeah, the wind has blown a certain way, and yes, Čeněk will do nothing against the current he perceives as dominant. But can we talk a bit more about him? Like what kind of person he was and where he came from, actually? Because when he walks onto the scene in our story, he is already, the supreme Burgrave, this amazing politician, the second man in the kingdom. But who was he before that?
Yeah, like he's quite established. But I think it's a bit shame that we didn't have time or space to like explore a little bit more his childhood. So here we are.
Yeah, let's get into it.
But he was born in somewhat like 1385. You know how it is at that time. Like we don't know exactly. And his father, he was called Čeněk of Wartenberg. His granddad was called Čeněk of Wartenberg, and they were quite an important family, but they weren't the top family. He was definitely one of the most important people in the whole bloodline before and after this, our Čeněk, the third one.
So the Wartenbergs reached their peak under this exact Čeněk.
Yeah. Well, like he's definitely the most famous one.
Yeah.
And his father, that might be interesting for, since we were already talking about Kingdom Come today, he built the castle of Trotsky, which, by the way, in the game, a lot of people in English calls it Trotsky.
A very commie castle.
It's Trotsky, which means ruins in Czech. I don't know where the name comes from, but yeah, it's like a amazing castle. But he had to sell it to Otto von Bergo, so our Čeněk didn't spend that much time there. And I think like he didn't have much time even to like, just to play around, because like when he was 15, he was already thrown into like he had to learn about legalities, and like he started to have a knack for it. He was really good at it, and he was a younger son. But his brother died, so he became this head of family basically when he was 20. And around that time, he was like pretty skilled at having, when you had some like legal disputes, he was usually part of it. And I think he's like a really ambitious guy that like he just like started to like, okay, this is like, I want to get my foot in and just like, become something. So he becomes a friend with one of the richest men in the whole land, which is Rosenbergs. You will hear about them later on. And that helps him to really establish himself. Like he is rich before, but now when he has this like the richest guy, they become buddies, and like he starts to taking care of his son. And like his legal stuff, which again...
Rosenberg's son, right?
Rosenberg's son, yeah. You will hear about that in the future episodes. It's quite important. I don't want to go much into detail, so we will talk definitely more later. But it is a thing that puts him on that path to become the supreme Burgrave. And exactly, he's probably very smart and exactly good at the legal stuff, which, for example, I think... So like when Hussites... like starts emerging, and you have this like critics, and you start to have the loud critics of the church. I think that is something that really like personally resonates with Čeněk, because when he's like exactly between this like 15 and 20, he does a lot of disputes with the church, and I think he's like personally witnessing of that greediness, and that just like how much land actually like belongs to church. So when you have, someone like Hus, some priest who are just saying like, well, maybe church shouldn't have so much, it probably resonated with him. But at the same time, like he liked his position and he liked to be supreme Burgrave. So
yeah, that's a strange duality of, the Hussite movement having the radical grassroots support of the poor, who would most likely want to, strip the wealth away from the wealthy, not only from the church. And then you have these top richest noblemen in the country who are also quite glad to support the Hussites, even though for completely different reasons.
Yeah, because they want to be more rich and more powerful.
Yeah, but also I can completely understand that there was a moral argument to this. Like, it wasn't.
I think, absolutely, I think you're right. But speaking about moral aspect with Čeněk,
I mean, you know what? I can. I don't think it's necessary to make him out to be a complete cynical opportunist. It might be that he had his ideals and he had his beliefs and moral qualms and stuff, but then he also wasn't a martyr and a courageous hero like Jan Hus, and he simply saw that it was kind of scary to go against Sigismund of Hungary and all his, Holy Roman Emperor cronies. So yeah, sometimes, if it makes sense to fight for something you believe in, it's fine to fight. But then when it stops making sense to fight because it's hopeless, then you just abandon the beliefs. I mean, it's relatable, isn't it?
It is relatable, but I really hope that world is more filled with Huses than with Čeněks, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think so. But what's also fascinating is that when we were talking about him, when he burst onto our scene as this great political figure, exactly, he was already established. He arrived in the story as a fully formed, powerful nobleman, and it's fascinating to me that he was quite a young guy still. Like he was about 30, right? During the time Jan Hus was executed and during the time when our Supreme Burgrave immediately began to change the course of history with his letters and his alliances. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is interesting, like, to look at the ages. Like, we sometimes don't talk about it that often, but like, for example, exactly like Jan Hus that we kept on behind us. Then,
that's true. We should have changed that. Yeah.
He was somewhat around 40 something when he died. I don't remember exactly what. I think it was like a 44 or 45. And Jerome of Prague, he was 37, so he was my age, almost 38. and so because exactly, like, when you look at someone who's bearded, you just put them like, oh, I guess he was like 50, 60, a whole life behind them. And yeah, it's wild to like have that little bit of reality check to realize like how these people were old, and they did a lot from very young age. Exactly, like this guy Čeněk started to dealing with law disputes when he was 15, so that was his puberty. Yeah.
That's not too relatable. By the way, do you want to change the picture? Like, should we have a pause? Okay.
Fine.
Let's just, you enjoy Jan Hus and his amazing visage that isn't probably accurate for one more episode. I don't think we have any pretty pictures of Želivský anyway. But by the way, do we, because I'm kind of fascinated about the fact that there's this letter, this artifact of history, which gets sent to the Catholic establishment, and it's ratified by all these seals and these signatures. And I mean, it's almost something like like the Declaration of Independence in America or something. But do we actually know what happened to it, or does it exist somewhere? Or thank you so much for watching this far. If you want more, then there is more to be had, because in this bonus episode, which is in its entirety is available on Patreon, that is Bloody Heart of Europe Patreon. Yeah, there is something about a few popes, isn't there, Alžběta?
Oh yeah, it's a story that definitely is worth to listen, because we will talk about these unhinged old men who were doing crazy stuff. We will have adultery, we will have disguises and running away. So yeah, join us on Patreon.
Thank you so much for your support. Bye.
Bye.
A big thank you to everyone who's helping make this podcast happen, especially to Bohumil Červený and Martin Baláš, our Jan Žižka's own patrons. Thanks so much, guys.